Hi, Amy. You're the first one to join. And I did watch Pinocchio. I will get to that later. I just want to give a minute for everything to settle in. Let me make sure my camera's in a good position. Let me start my video here so I can see the chat. Oh, let me mute myself so I don't hear myself. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water. I kind of have like morning throat, so hopefully I won't cough too much. So I know Amy knows me, but for anyone else who is watching or if you're watching the replay, I just thought that I would introduce myself quickly in case you're new to my channel. My name is Donna DeRosa, and I've been on YouTube now probably for 10 years, probably even more than that. I first started when I was an automotive journalist and I would post videos of cars, but then when I left that job, I moved back east. I was living in LA, I moved back east, and now I am the author of these two books, The Big Book of Mediterranean Diet Cooking and The Flexitarian Cookbook for Beginners, which just came out in 2022. This was my first one. It's a tome, as you can see. I'm very, very proud of these books. And I do recipes on this channel, and then I like to talk about other things too. So I don't like to just talk about food all the time. I have a website, donnaderosa.com, where I talk about La Dolce Vita, and it's all about living the sweet life. And it's really the lifestyle aspect of the Mediterranean diet, because I talk a lot about the Mediterranean diet, but the Mediterranean diet, as I always say, is really a lifestyle. It's a complete lifestyle, and there are a lot of lifestyle ideas that go along with the things that we talk about with nutrition. So I'm going to take another sip of water. Hello, Maestro. Good morning, he says. Hello. Thank you very much for joining me live. So let me bring up my notes. Sorry about my throat. I was reading an article written by a nutritionist that talked about the 7 foods that you should not stop eating. It's a weird way of phrasing something. The 7 foods you should not stop eating when you're dieting. Because a lot of times when you start a diet, everyone has an opinion on it, right? And everyone's going to tell you that you're doing it wrong. Or they'll say things like, oh my God, you're eating carbs. Or you know, when you're trying to lose weight, you should cut out the white foods. And you know, everyone has their own idea of what a diet should be. So the white foods would be like bread and pasta and potatoes and things like that. So really, it's up to you what works for you best. And you know, I always talk about the Mediterranean diet, so there are a lot of healthy ways that you can lose weight without actually dieting, is what we call dieting. So I wanted to go through some of the foods that this dietitian talked about that we should not cut out of our diet, because I think they're important foods, and they're things that you'll notice that are part of the Mediterranean diet, and things that I eat all the time. So the number one thing, well, the first thing on his list was avocados, because I've never cut into an avocado somewhere without someone telling me, oh my God, you're eating an avocado, they're so fattening. Well, avocados are creamy, they're delicious, they have a luscious texture, and they do have a lot of fat in them, but they're the good fat, they're the healthy fat, the unsaturated fat. And the reason they have this much fat is because they're packed with so much nutrition and fiber that you actually need the fat to be able to absorb it into your body. So that's why they have a lot of fat, because it goes along with how much vitamins and minerals and things are included in avocados. So don't cut out avocados thinking that they're fattening and they're high in calories, because you can put them, I love making avocado toast. You can put them in salads. A lot of times I'll make my own vinaigrette, but then when I mix the salad together, I'll slice some avocados in it. And then when I toss it together, they sort of blend with the dressing and it kind of gets a little creamy. So good. You can just put them on sandwiches, you know, as another layer if you want to not use mayonnaise or mustard or a condiment or something like that. And people even eat them. You know, they make pudding out of them. They'll use the avocado and they'll mix cocoa powder or something in them. And because of the texture, and it makes a healthy pudding instead of using a cream or milk or something like that. And sometimes I just I'll cut an avocado in half. I don't know if you can see my hands. And I'll sprinkle a little salt on it and I'll just eat it with a spoon. And it's like having a little pudding cup, like a not sweet pudding cup. But they're really good. So don't cut out avocados. They're very, very good for you. The next thing on the list is nuts, because nuts are also high in calories, but really how many nuts are you going to eat at one time, right? I mean, if you think about serving sizes, like if you fill the palm of your hand with some nuts. That's probably a serving of nuts. They're a good thing to eat as a snack, or you can toss them on salads. You can, sometimes I'll put them in a little Ziploc baggie and then I'll bang them with something to crush them up, and then I'll sprinkle them on top of soup. You can just eat them straight up. They're also a very healthy source of fat. So they're the unsaturated fat. And they've been known to contribute to weight loss. They're a good way if you're feeling a little down in the middle of the day and you want something to eat, just eat a little handful of nuts. They're an appetite suppressant, and they also just do good things to your body. And just use them as you would, on like a salad topping or something like that. When you can also eat nut butters, just make sure that they're not the kind that have added sugar. So if you buy a nut butter, you want it to be an all natural one that's just the nuts and maybe some salt or something like that, because they have their own oil. They make their own consistency. So nuts is the second one. Sort of something that goes along with that is seeds. A lot of times they're lumped together into a category of nuts and seeds, but seeds are the same thing. You can enjoy them just as you would as with nuts. You can eat them by themselves. And I'm talking like sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds, things like that. Chia seeds you can make a pudding out of, or flax seeds. You have to grind flax seeds up, because they're a little too hard. But they're really good to add. Like I said, sprinkle them on your salads. Buy bread that is covered in seeds, and or you put them on top of your soups, or put them in a smoothie, or on top of your yogurt or your morning oatmeal or something like that. So don't cut out seeds either. Now this is a big one, potatoes. As soon as you go on a diet, everyone's going to say, "Oh my God, you're eating potatoes. They're full of starch," but they're the good starch. If there's a good starch and a bad starch. So whether they're white potatoes or sweet potatoes, they're very good for you. I'm looking down at my notes here if you're wondering why I'm looking over here. They have a type of starch that is resistant to digestion, which helps you keep full longer and helps control your appetite. And white potatoes are full of potassium. And the sweet potatoes, the colored potatoes, are a good source of vitamin A. And so both of them are loaded with nutrition. So don't cut out potatoes. Don't feel like you have to. They're a really good, comforting food. And you can cook them in so many ways. I'm not talking potato chips, right? Or deep fried French fries. I'm talking about a baked potato, a boiled potato. Sometimes I like to take potatoes and I slice them kind of thin, maybe like 1/4 of an inch. And I put them in a casserole dish, and I put a little olive oil on them and some salt, add a little lemon juice, sprinkle oregano over the top, stick it in the oven, cook them for, half hour, 45 minutes, something until they get soft, and they're delicious. So don't cut out potatoes. Excuse me. Let me take a sip. Another big one is fruit. Right away, people say, "Oh my God, fruit has sugar in it." People always have opinions about your diet, right? People who have followed low-carb diets especially try to stay away from fruit, because fruit is a sugar is a carb. But you really don't have to worry about your carbs in your diet unless there is a specific health reason for it. So unless you're diabetic or you're having some trouble with your blood sugar or certain kind of, things like that, you don't have to worry about carbs. Carbs are something that your body needs. There are healthier carbs than there are other kinds, and fruit is a healthy carb. Yes, they're full of sugars, but they're also full of vitamins and minerals, and they're delicious, and they have a lot of fiber. So anything with a lot of fiber in it is going to help you feel full longer. They're satisfying, and there's so many things you can do with fruit. You can use it as a snack. You can put them in your salads. You can just eat them on their own. I'm getting a visitor. Hello. Okay, come on, get away from the candle. I'm sorry. Her name is Miss Scarlett. So don't skip fruits. Fruit is really good for you. Keep a bowl of fruit, seasonal fruit, on your kitchen table. So if your family is looking for a snack, they don't know what to do, maybe you can offer them, a small orange or some strawberries or something like that. Okay, the next one is whole grains. They're another great source of fiber. And the Mediterranean diet is all about adding whole grains to your diet. So when you're trying to lose weight, fiber really helps you feel full. And we know whole grains as brown rice, oatmeal, whole grain breads. But try some of the more interesting ones. Find my cat like that too. Mostly he stands on me. She's so heavy. Sometimes she jumps up on me and she's really heavy. She's actually not my cat. But try some of the other whole grains like farro, teff, bulgur, barley, millet, even popcorn is a whole grain. So if you need a whole grain snack, try to make some popcorn. And the very last one is dessert. Now, okay, it sounds funny to say eat a little dessert when you're on a diet, but I'm not talking eating dessert all the time. I'm just saying don't deprive yourself. Because if you are on a diet and you're just depriving yourself of everything that brings you pleasure in life, you're just going to either go off the diet or you're going to get hangry or, it's just better. The Mediterranean diet isn't about cutting foods out of your diet. It's about moderation. It's about finding pleasure in other ways in your life. So you might find that if you start doing some activities that you really find pleasure, that you take pleasure in, that you won't need the pleasure source of dessert as much. But if you really do want dessert, just take a small piece of something, share it with somebody. A few forkfuls of something are going to be enough to satisfy you, to get you by to where you don't feel like you have to eat a whole big piece of dessert. And don't eat dessert every day. I'm just saying don't deprive yourself. And especially if you're adding a lot of exercise to your diet and things like that, you can budget for it with your exercise and then say, okay, I'm going to do an extra 10 minutes on the treadmill today because I'm going to have a couple cookies. And that's one of my things that I like to do. I like to have cookies around in the house because they're small. And sometimes at night, I just need one little small thing. So I might take a cookie or 2 cookies, but I don't need a whole bag of cookies or a whole box of cookies. So just practice moderation, but don't deprive yourself of dessert because then it's just going to backfire on you eventually. And then you're going to, want to go crazy. So they are the 7 foods that you should not cut out of your life if you're trying to diet. And I hope you found that helpful. Let's see, my next topic here is I want to talk about veggie burgers. I've been experimenting with all different kinds of veggie burger recipes. And the one that we kind of settled on, we have 2 that we settled on that are our favorites. The original one I found that I tried was a mixture of spinach and mushrooms, regatta cheese. There was like a little egg and breadcrumb in there to hold it together. And I really like that one a lot. And it goes really well. Even if you don't want to eat it as a burger, it goes really well with tomato sauce. So you can make the patties and then kind of have them on the side if you're having, some pasta or something like that. But another one that we've tried recently is to use black beans as the base. So yesterday we made black bean burgers, and let me see if I wrote down what I had in it. We used a can of black beans drained. We added some beet greens, some garlic, some salt and pepper, egg, breadcrumbs, and we added a little Calabrian chili paste, which is really, really hot, but just something to jazz it up a little bit. And hot things go really well with black beans. And when you make black bean burgers, they hold together really well. They get a nice texture. We made them earlier, kept them in the fridge. So you can grill them, you can do different things with them. I usually bake them in the oven. And then I'll flip them over, I'll bake them for maybe 15, 20 minutes and I'll flip them over. And they get a really nice consistency. My visitor's back. I'm sorry. Hey, sweetie, say hi to the camera. Black bean burgers stay together well, so they're easy when you flip them over. They have a nice texture that works well on a roll. So what we did yesterday is we just ate them California style. And I don't know if you've ever had a burger in California. They put pickles and what they call spread on everything. And spread is kind of like Russian dressing or Thousand Island dressing, something like that, that orangey kind of dressing. So that's what we did. We made black bean burgers, put a little melted cheese on them. And then we put pickles and spread. And we ate them on, we had snowflake rolls, the buns that have like the white powder on top. So let me know if you like veggie burgers and what is your favorite kind of mixture that you do. Excuse me, because I've tried lots of different ones. And one time I wanted to try teff, which is an African grain. It's the tiniest of the whole grain. It's really, really tiny. And they just would not stay together, but it tasted really good. But they kind of just fell apart. So it ended up being just, like a mash on the plate. But explore some of those whole grains and see if you can make different kinds of veggie burgers out of them. So that's all I have about food today. Let me see. I'm falling behind on my comments here. Maestro says, I'll take a grass-fed beef burger. Maestro. Well, you know what? I like a beef burger every now and then too. And grass-fed, I guess, is the best way to go. But, on the Mediterranean diet, you don't have to cut out red meat. You should just eat it sparingly. Make it a smallish burger. Sometimes you can, if you're making them at home, you can make them a thin patty, and then you can put a lot of toppings on it, and only do it maybe once or twice a month. So that's what I have to say about beef burgers. I've been talking about at the end of these videos each week about what I'm watching or what I'm reading. And I just finished a peripheral. I don't have it out here with me, but I showed you that last week. I watched a TV show. I read the book. I finally finished reading the book. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed both, actually, the TV show and the book. They were very different stories. The TV show is on Amazon Prime. And it's interesting because whenever they adapt books for television, for some reason, they took the characters, they took the world, and then they wrote a completely different story. I don't know why they do that. Because the story in the book is perfectly fine, and it probably would have worked in a TV show too. So I don't know, maybe it wasn't jazzy enough for television or something. But I did like both. I did like the story on the TV show, and I did like the book. And there is another book, there's a second book called Agency, and then he's working on a third one, hasn't come out yet. And I was reading what the book Agency was about, and it didn't have all the same characters. It wasn't really a continuation. It was sort of set in the same world. So I'm not sure if I want to read that or not. I probably will eventually, but I would kind of miss the characters that were in the first one because I really liked them. What else am I reading? Oh, I just started. These are all the books I got for Christmas. So this is really old school cyberpunk. This book came out in 1991. It's called Sinners with a Y by Pat Cadigan. There weren't a lot of female writers back then who got a lot of attention in the cyberpunk science fiction genre. But I just started this one. And it's funny because it was written in 1991. Some of the tech that she's talking about in the book didn't exist yet, so it's very kind of prescient. And this is the anniversary edition. It's a 10-year anniversary edition. So even when they're writing the 10-year anniversary introduction to this book, it's still only 2001, and they're talking about all the things that she predicted would happen. So I'm really interested to get into this. You can see I didn't get very far. I'm only on page 18. I kind of don't understand what's going on in it yet. But I find science fiction is like that quite often, especially good science fiction, that they're talking about things that you don't understand, and then you kind of eventually catch up to the story and the tech. So there was a lot of interesting things, the way they were interfacing with computers and things, and I thought, in 1991, I don't even remember having the internet. I don't even think it was that popular yet. I know that I remember in 1991 working on computers, but not really being connected yet. Like I think the internet became really popular later. Amy says, I get a pain in my chest on the left. It only appears when I have anxiety. Amy, you need to go to the doctor. You've been telling me that you have a muzzy head, and now that you're having anxiety, I'm getting worried about you because I'm not a doctor, and I can't give you advice on these things. I really want you to go visit your doctor because, especially if it's anxiety, he can just give you something to relieve your symptoms, or at least give you peace of mind about why you're having these issues. So please go to your doctor. Okay. So anyway, that's the book that I'm reading right now. And Amy, because you're on the show here, I did finally watch. You had recommended that I watch Pinocchio, and it's the what's his name, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and it was a stop-action animation movie. It was really beautiful. I loved whoever the actor was who played the boy Pinocchio. I do have it, like my anxiety or something worse. Yes, please tell me you're going to go to the doctor. I want to hear you say that you're going to go to the doctor. But I did watch the movie that you recommended. I really enjoyed it. It was beautiful. And I love Ewan McGregor, and he was narrating. He was playing Sebastian J. Cricket in it. And I thought it was just interesting. It was sort of set post-World War I, in between the wars, and in Italy. So it was the fascist Italy, and Il Duce is a character in it for a little bit of time. Thank you for that recommendation, Amy. And if anybody is watching anything interesting, let me know. I just finished a show called The Counterpart. You will. Thank you. I'm glad. I want to hear next week you tell me that you went, if you can get an appointment that quick. I just watched a show called The Counterpart on Amazon Prime, and it has 2 seasons. I just watched season 1 so far, and came out, I think, in 2018. So it's interesting because it's about an event that happened sometime after World War II, where some kind of experiment was happening, and the world divided. Now there's a copy of the world, and they sort of were splitting off and having their own histories going forward. And it's kind of a secret, and only some people know about it. And they have public relations talking back and forth to each other. And some people are, escaping to each side. And it was a really interesting show, which is interesting because on the one side there was a big pandemic that happened, and a lot of people died. And it was before we had our pandemic. So I always find that interesting when people are predicting things that haven't happened yet. I mean, I know there have been other pandemics, but not our really big one like they had. So I think that is all I have for this week. That's all I'm reading and watching. And I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And that's all I have. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you want me to talk about next week in particular. And I will see you all then. Bye.